People often assume that expensive automatically means better, that if a place costs more to live in, it must be offering more in return. Better services, better infrastructure, better opportunity, a better quality of life. And sometimes that's true. There are states where higher costs actually buy you something tangible, like functional systems, dependable public services, and real economic upside. But this video is not about those places. In this video, we're exposing the top 10 most expensive states in the United States where the price keeps climbing but the value just isn't keeping up. These are places where housing prices surge, taxes stack up, and everyday expenses rise year after year, while roads crumble, services lag, and quality of life feels stuck in neutral. No politics, no ideology, just numbers, trends, and outcomes. Because when costs keep rising but value doesn't, people eventually start asking a simple question: what am I really paying for? Number 10, Connecticut, a place where everyday expenses often feel high, even if the overall economy doesn't feel like it's booming. According to living cost rankings, Connecticut's estimated yearly cost of living for an average household is roughly $46,900, which sits well above the national average of about $40,400. Housing contributes heavily to that burden because the median home price in the state sits around $410,000, a value that has climbed year after year, squeezing first-time buyers and newcomers. Rents in many Connecticut cities also average nearly $2,000 per month, making it tough for families to find affordable options. Meanwhile, utilities, groceries, and taxes are all higher than the national average, which pushes most residents well above what people pay in states with lower costs of living. The challenge here isn't that the state lacks amenities, but that the price you pay doesn't always feel like the value you get. Job growth outside certain sectors has been sluggish, population growth has been weak, and opportunities for younger workers often pull them toward neighboring states that feel more dynamic. If you're paying this much just to stay in the middle of the pack, it's natural to ask whether the cost is worth it. Number 9, Illinois, a state where residents pay some of the highest property taxes in the country without seeing results that match the cost. Illinois consistently ranks near the top for property tax burden, with an average effective property tax rate of around 2%, meaning many homeowners, especially in suburban areas, end up paying well over $10,000 a year just to keep their house. The median home price outside of Chicago sits at roughly $280,000, which doesn't sound extreme on paper until you factor in the tax load layered on top of it. Illinois also has a flat state income tax of 4.95%, so everyone pays the same rate regardless of income level. A major issue is that a large portion of state and local revenue is absorbed by long-standing pension obligations, leaving less money available for visible improvements like roads, public transit, and infrastructure upgrades. Chicago still functions as an economic engine, which helps mask some of these problems, but once you move outside the metro area, many towns feel like they're paying big city prices for very average Midwestern outcomes. Even though Illinois' overall cost of living, excluding Chicago, is close to the national average, the state has been losing population consistently since around 2014, a strong signal that many residents have already decided the financial trade-off is no longer worth it. Number 8, Oregon, a state that charges like it has everything figured out while still operating like it's mid-experiment. Oregon has one of the higher income tax burdens in the country, with the top rate sitting around 9.9%. And despite that, residents have watched housing costs climb faster than infrastructure can handle. The median home price in Oregon is roughly $490,000, driven largely by the Portland metro area, where demand surged for years while housing supply lagged behind. The overall cost of living index sits around 116, meaning everyday expenses are about 16% higher than the national average. For a long time, Oregon ranked among the fastest growing states, especially from the late 1990 seconds through the mid 2010 seconds. And that rapid growth overwhelmed roads, transit systems, and basic public services. Traffic congestion worsened, public safety concerns increased in major cities, and homelessness became one of the most visible quality of life issues, with Oregon consistently ranking among the top 5 states nationwide for homelessness rates. Even after introducing special taxes aimed at addressing the problem, many residents feel the visible improvements haven't matched the scale of the spending. While conditions in Portland have improved slightly since their low point around 2022 and 2023, the broader issue remains unresolved. Recently, Oregon's net migration has turned negative, which suggests that more people are questioning whether paying premium prices for a state that still feels like it's finding its footing really makes sense. Number 7, New Jersey, where the cost of living isn't driven by what the state offers so much as where it's located. New Jersey's entire pricing structure is built around proximity, and residents pay heavily for it. The state has the highest property tax rate in the country at roughly 2.26%, which pushes annual tax bills into five-figure territory for many homeowners. The median home price sits around $540,000, and that cost applies across most of the state, not just a single major city. On top of that, New Jersey's top income tax rate reaches 10.75%, and toll roads, fees, and transportation costs add up quickly. The justification is access to New York City and Philadelphia, along with jobs that often aren't even located in New Jersey itself. Infrastructure is heavily used but rarely impressive, with crowded roads, inconsistent transit reliability, and construction that feels permanent. When you combine overlapping local governments with high administrative costs, the result is a state that works, but at a price that feels far out of proportion to what residents actually receive. Since around 2014, New Jersey has experienced consistent net out-migration, with many residents relocating to states like Pennsylvania, Florida, and North Carolina, suggesting that for a growing number of people, proximity alone is no longer worth the premium. Number 6, Washington State. Washington often gets labeled as tax-friendly because it has no state income tax, but that reputation doesn't hold up once you look at the full picture. Residents make up for it through some of the highest sales taxes in the country, averaging around 10%, along with rising property taxes in fast-growing areas. Housing costs have surged, especially around the Seattle metro, where median home prices sit near $610,000, far outpacing wage growth for anyone outside the tech sector. On top of that, utilities, childcare, transportation, and toll roads quietly push monthly expenses higher than people expect. The overall cost of living index sits around 117, meaning everyday expenses are roughly 17% above the national average. Washington still offers strong job opportunities and natural beauty, but for many residents, the gap between what they earn and what it costs to live comfortably has become impossible to ignore. Number 5, Massachusetts. The state that delivers real strengths, but charges a price that increasingly locks people out of benefiting from them. Education, healthcare, and high-end professional opportunities are some of the best in the country, but accessing them has become incredibly expensive. The median home price in Massachusetts is now around $650,000, with prices in and around the Boston metro area often far higher, pushing both buyers and renters into uncomfortable financial territory. Rent alone consumes a large share of income for many households, and over the past 5 years, average rents have increased by roughly 30%. The state income tax rate sits at about 5%, and when combined with high housing costs, transportation expenses, and everyday fees, the overall cost of living index rises to around 123, meaning daily expenses are more than 20% higher than the national average. Traffic congestion ranks among the worst in the country, and public transit reliability has declined despite years of heavy investment, adding frustration on top of the financial pressure. For people working in finance, biotech, tech, or higher education, the numbers can still work. But for average earners, Massachusetts has quietly crossed a line where the cost of staying no longer matches the quality of life, which helps explain why the state continues to see slightly negative net migration. Number 4, Hawaii. It is expensive in a way that goes far beyond housing and into everyday survival math. Geography explains higher prices, but it doesn't fully explain why so many residents feel squeezed year after year. The median home price in Hawaii sits around $830,000, making homeownership unreachable for a large share of local residents, especially those earning local wages. The overall cost of living index is roughly 185, which means a basket of everyday goods that costs $100 in an average US state costs about $185 in Hawaii. Utilities are another major pressure point, with electricity prices running 2 to 3 times higher than mainland averages. Groceries, fuel, and basic necessities all cost significantly more, while wages consistently lag behind the cost of living. At the same time, infrastructure projects move slowly, healthcare access is limited in many areas, and traffic congestion is severe, especially on Oahu. Many residents feel that public systems are stretched thin, and that tourism is prioritized long before local quality of life. The result is a state that delivers undeniable natural beauty but asks residents to absorb one of the worst income-to-expense ratios in the country, which helps explain why Hawaii continues to experience strong net population loss despite its appeal on postcards. Number 3, Colorado. It didn't become expensive because it suddenly transformed into a dramatically better state. It became expensive because too many people arrived too quickly and the systems underneath never caught up. Over the past decade, demand surged while housing supply lagged, pushing the median home price to roughly $560,000 or higher, especially along the Front Range. Infrastructure struggled to keep pace as traffic congestion worsened, commute times increased, and basic services began to feel strained. The overall cost of living index sits around 118, meaning everyday expenses are close to 20% higher than the national average. Taxes and fees have crept upward, utility bills have followed, and many residents now expect further increases as the state tries to fund overdue upgrades to roads, utilities, and public services. Colorado still offers strong access to outdoor recreation, and that lifestyle remains a major draw. But it now comes with far more competition, crowding, and cost than it did 10 or 20 years ago. For many longtime residents, it feels like they're paying premium prices for a version of Colorado that worked better in the past, which is why affordability has become one of the state's most pressing concerns. Number 2, New York, a state where costs stack up layer by layer until everyday life starts to feel like a constant financial squeeze. Income taxes are high, property taxes are heavy, rent is expensive, and transit costs, fees, and basic expenses all add up quickly. New York's top state income tax rate sits around 10.9%, and for residents of New York City, local taxes push that burden even higher. The statewide median home price is roughly $420,000, but in New York City, that figure jumps closer to $800,000, making ownership unrealistic for many households. Even outside the city, smaller metros like Buffalo and Syracuse often carry higher costs than comparable cities in other states, simply because of the New York zip code. Infrastructure in many areas feels aged, commutes are long, and daily expenses continue to rise faster than wages for people outside top income brackets. The opportunity and prestige are real, but they're increasingly limited to those who can afford the entry price. For everyone else, the math feels exhausting, which is why many residents quietly look elsewhere despite the state's economic importance and cultural influence. Continuing to the final spot. Number 1, California. It takes the top position because no other state combines extreme costs with such a widespread feeling that the value no longer matches the price. Housing is the clearest example, with a median home price of around $760,000 statewide and well over $1 million in many metro areas. California also has the highest top income tax rate in the country at 13.3%, along with the most expensive gas prices nationwide, rising insurance costs, and utilities that are both costly and increasingly unreliable. The overall cost of living index sits around 142, meaning daily expenses are more than 40% higher than the national average. With nearly 40 million residents, infrastructure is under constant strain, traffic congestion is severe, and homelessness is widespread, adding visible pressure to everyday life. California still offers innovation, natural beauty, and global influence, but for many residents, the financial trade-offs have reached a breaking point. Migration is now close to even, with roughly as many people leaving as arriving, a sign that the state isn't collapsing, but is clearly testing how much people are willing to pay just to stay. Those were the top 10 most expensive states in the US where the price keeps rising, but the value doesn't always follow. High costs aren't the real problem, paying more and getting less is. If this breakdown helped you see where the money actually goes, hit like so the algorithm knows GlobeWisp exists, and subscribe for more data-driven videos that cut through the hype. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.